All right, Lewis from Washington, D.C., WAVA is the station. How you doing?
As well as can be expected.
Okay, well, how could we help you today?
I've been married 15 years.
Okay.
And, we have children, and my wife and I have been separated for about a year and a half now. She had an affair. We live in the same house. We obviously had our, challenges as marriages do. She's still acting out.
But you're separated, but you're living in the same house? Is that what you said?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, the whole time, a year and a half. Okay.
Right, and it's just hard, in
Sure.
the home. And, the counsel that I've had is, it's really easy to have everyone has an opinion that says, well, that happened. I would never put up with that. I never, this. But, as a Christian man, I think, I made a covenant. We can work through it. Let's work on it.
Right.
But she doesn't. And, I think the biggest part for me is coming to terms with that. And,
sounds like you're taking your vows very seriously because they've been violated. You realize the impact of that.
It's all I had as far as trust.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Sorry, buddy. We'll try to help you when we come back. You hold on.
At New Life, we are passionate about helping people experience recovery. And it's no exception when it comes to recovery from the addiction to drugs or alcohol. We are very grateful to have found what we believe is the premier facility to offer a Christian 12-step model of care. It treats the whole person and offers biblical values as the foundation for treating the mind, body, and spirit. Our partner in drug and alcohol addiction provides exemplary medical and psychiatric care, as well as Christian-based psychotherapy, pastoral counseling, biblical studies and meditation, educational groups, worship and prayer, and a Christian 12-step program. The approach is non-denominational and guides the patient to experience freedom through a renewed relationship with Jesus Christ. Call us today at 1-800-NEW-LIFE if you or someone you love is struggling with drug or alcohol addiction. That's 1-800-639-5433, or go to newlife.com. 1-800-NEW-LIFE, 1-800-639-5433.
To find out more information about New Life or to order any of the resources mentioned on today's program, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Now, back to the program.
We're back. We're talking with Lewis' wife acting out, and he wants the marriage to work. 9 out of 10 men, when the wife is unfaithful, they leave, and you're really trying to make it work, but she's not. And, Lewis, one of the things I wonder about is with you wanting to make it work, if you've made it so easy for her that it's almost like giving her license to continue to act out. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I would agree that I kind of enabled some of this. As it all came about, it was an old friend, and she had always been home, and I'd always worked. We had some financial challenges, and so this was an opportunity for her to work outside, to work from home. Yeah. I had some suspicions about it, but, don't worry, and so forth. And, as things would go, I would come across a couple of things that thought would be some communication that was inappropriate. I would address both of them, and it was kind of like, look, it was just a joke. We even came to a New Life weekend and then talked about certain things in there. I didn't realize how deep it had been already, this relationship, because 2 months later, the affair, I made it public. I found out what had happened and so forth, and it's just been a challenge since then.
Okay, so you want it to work, but since then, by her not really having any consequences of anything, it's kind of like she's got her cake and eats it too. Right, and that's kind of where that has been, and she would still take these trips and business trips, and I know they would be there, or I find contraceptives and just tearing me up, and we have children at home and so forth, and we finally I initiated a mediation,
to begin this process.
Yeah.
But I guess, the hard part for me was just coming to terms was she quit.
Yeah.
Right.
And,
Okay, so what's the question for us?
And I've even talked about, that, because we hadn't been together for over a year and a half intimately and so forth. And, I would come to terms that if there was no third party, if that was our marriage, then I would do it.
But then it's not reality. So what is the question for us?
Well, I guess the question here is just, just taking those steps. I guess, I think I kind of know what to do, and I've put myself. I belong to a small group. I have 5 men that I'm accountable to.
Well, let me make an observation. Let me make an observation that what you're doing now isn't working in giving you any hope for a marriage reconciliation.
Right.
Right. Okay.
Right.
So we have to start there and say, okay, well, if this isn't working, what is going to work?
Well, I guess I don't think anything's going to work.
Okay.
And so, obviously because of finances, which is why we're still in the same house. And I guess it's just understanding that piece, is that having to be the one to pull that trigger has been very difficult for me.
Of course, Louis. And I think this is what your friends are objecting to, and why some of their comments. I mean, it's true. Nobody knows how they would respond unless they're in this position. But I think they're seeing you having a hard time accepting what is being played out in front of everybody, and having to be the one, because it's really hard. That's not what you want. That hurts. And if you let go and move forward, then there's the chance that she'll keep going. But I think the illusion is that if you kind of drag it out or keep her in the home, that somehow maybe something will happen and she'll change her mind.
Well, I don't think that's going to happen.
Okay.
Okay, and here's the other thing.
Speaking.
Your finances, you have to look at that and say they may be better today than they will ever be, because you don't know what's going to happen in a year.
Right.
And so you have to make some adult, hard, difficult choices about living situations rather than status quo.
Right.
Louis, you said something a minute ago. You said, if there weren't a third party involved, I could put up with a year and a half of no intimacy. Is that what I heard you say?
Well, I mean, I would honor my vows. I would honor my commitment.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I appreciate that. But obviously that would be a symptom there was something seriously wrong in the relationship, wouldn't it?
Of course.
Okay.
And I know that.
So, but when are you released?
And there's a history on her part and so forth.
When are you released from your vows? And Jesus talks about this, and he says, if anybody divorces his wife and marries another, except for immorality, he then commits adultery. So you have clearly an exception here to your freedom, actually, to divorce and find someone else in life that would honor those vows. And you have a biblical grounds for divorce here. And you say, I want to cling to my vows, but she hasn't. And so I think you have to decide, how long am I going to hold on to this? The other thing is the reality, like Steve said, she has her cake and eat it too. So the reality is she doesn't have to, she's suffered no losses. She's just got to do whatever she wants to do. But if you sell your house, which you're going to probably have to do, divide the equity and each of you get an apartment. And how many kids do you have?
4. And
how old are they?
2 are teenagers, and the other 2 are 8 and 6.
Okay, well, that's really tragic.
Yeah,
it's so sad.
But your wife is the one that's causing this tragedy, and she's out running around, going on business trips, and she's the one that is violating and not paying attention to those kids by her behavior. And you're just going to have to ask the question: when do my vows stop?
I know. I mean, I guess it's, and that's what I'm having a hard time with.
I know,
because I know it's not perfect, but it's my family.
I know, and so this explains what you're having to give up.
Yeah,
you're having to give up your nuclear family, and what you're saying is, "Hey, I'm willing to do this." You know what? You might be willing to do this for another 12 years until that 6-year-old is 18 years old. I don't know. You're going to have to ask yourself, Lewis, whether this is something you want to keep doing just like you're doing to maintain the family and let your wife act out. It's your call, you know. I don't know that I would choose that, but you're going to have to ask, how desperate am I to hold this family together? It hurts. It's very painful, and I hear that this is all you have, and there's no good choice here.
So, and, you know, and I guess it's, and I know that, you know, but, you know, and I've kind of talked to the kids a little bit, you know, kind of understand, not in too much detail in regards to their mother, but just understanding that there's some tough choices that we're going to have to make, but we'll get through this.
Yes,
Right.
I just don't know what it looks like.
That's
and I just want to communicate to them that Dad's hurting too.
Yeah.
Oh, it's Lewis, I'm so
Of course
sorry.
you are.
Yeah.
So, because I love my children,
Sure you
I know
and I
you
love my wife.
We can hear that, Lewis.
You know, and I don't hate her. I just hate what she's doing,
Right.
and I just want to be careful that bitterness doesn't rest and you know, just sits in my heart.
Lewis, it's one step at a time.
So, anyway, I think I know what to do.
Yeah.
I just sometimes have to talk about it.
Yeah.
And I do have a good support system, and I've gotten things in place. I think it's just, you know, this is my Gethsemane, and
You can do it. You can do it, and your kids will be okay. I have my daughter's 21. She went through divorce at when she was 12, and she made it through the divorce. She's an amazing person. She's okay, and they'll be okay.
And she's okay because, Steve, you stayed connected to her.
And you'll stay
and
connected
talked
to these
about
kids.
it. And you, yes,
Right.
Lewis,
Hey,
will
Lewis,
stay connected.
What happened?
And I got a great relationship with the kids.
Lewis?
I have a great relationship with
Good.
the kids.
Lewis, what happened to you when you were a kid? And your mom and dad?
You know, my parents are still married. They're in their 70s. You know, my dad, blue collar, worked a lot. You know, Mom was home, a lot of affection. But my mom cheated on my dad. And I remember, you know, my dad was, you know, always working. My dad was a wonderful provider, and you know, was a good father and was a good husband. But you know, my parents were in their early 20s. I was probably about 5 or 6, probably about 7 years old. When my dad was at work, I remember this guy would come around, and you know, I would pretend I was sick every time he came around. You know, not knowing what was going on, but I knew he wasn't my dad.
So, Lewis,
You know.
Lewis,
Ouch,
I'm
Lewis.
so sorry. And that's a very painful memory. But I want you to also realize that what's happening right now is that memory and your current situation are getting commingled. And so
Yeah.
the pain that is occurring inside of you has a commingling of a historical pain and a present pain that are so similar. And you're your dad right now.
Who's afraid the kids are going to feel like you felt.
Yeah, see, I don't want them to do that. I mean, and that's why I was talking to my daughter, my older one, and just confessing to her you know, where I have fallen short, because I don't want the sins of the father to be passed on to my kids. We weren't, you know, Christians when we met. I got my wife pregnant. You know, she felt she had to get married. I didn't think twice about that. We were engaged and so forth. But, you know, it was a rough start, so I apologized to my oldest daughter for that, and I asked for her forgiveness.
That's very cool. That's amazing you do that. I love your heart. And I think you've done everything to do what a good dad could do to explain to your kids why you're in this predicament. But I want you to also realize you're getting stirring up your history here, and it's adding to your torment, would be my guess. And I would also be, even if you have support, I would get some support from a pastor or somebody who understands how history relates to the present. and realize you're deeply getting triggered here. And
or a therapist.
A therapist, and you don't want to you don't want to pull a trigger because it's a deep pain in your own life. And you're also talking about the little Lewis inside.
But I think that's also immobilizing you,
Yes.
so that even though the adult Lewis knows what to do, the little boy Lewis is feeling paralyzed by this situation.
Lewis, I'm going to send you Healing is a Choice. I'm going to hope that you could come join us for our workshop. Maybe somebody would scholarship you through it. We know how painful this is. I'm so sorry for what you're having to go through. I had to go through the same thing. It is painful, but you're going to make it. You're going to land on your feet. You're going to be okay. You just have some tough things to go through. All right?
Well, I appreciate y'all's time. Thank you so much.
Okay, man. Hold
You're
on.
welcome,
I want to
Lewis.
send you Healing is a Choice.
Give us a call back sometime,
Yeah.
6 months down the road, and let us know how you're doing.
Well. There is a real example of just how painful divorce is. What does an affair feel like? Oh, it feels so great, so good.
Yeah.
You're so energized. But it also feels like this
Sure.
to the other people. So we'll pray
That's
for
huge
Lewis.
ripple effects.
Yeah, we'll pray for him. And, man, I pray for those kids because they will suffer. They'll be okay, hopefully, if he'll stick with them. But they will suffer.